Good evening, good people. The time is 5:05 and we don't want to disrespect anybody's time. We gave an opportunity for people to log on. I am Shantae Young, Councilwoman Webb's legislative assistant. And I just want to go through a couple housekeeping things. When you came online, you are generally automatically muted. We are asked that you remain muted so that we won't hear any background noise and that the speakers can be heard. Once you are unmuted, please mute yourself back after that, or I will mute you. This presentation is actually being recorded, and it's being recorded because it'll be posted to Councilwoman Webb's YouTube page for further viewing. So if you have some people who may not be able to be here tonight, then they will have the opportunity to do so. I'm going to send out a link. If you put your email address in the chat box, or if I already have your email address, you will receive a copy of this recording. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to the woman you all know, Shantae Jamison, my favorite Shantae. Hey, Shantae, take it over.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Shantae Young. So many of you, if not all of you, because I know a lot of you, have expressed either to me or your council person or the police department about speeding in the Castle Point neighborhood. We all recognize that it is a huge issue, and it is a huge safety issue for the residents and for your families. So we talked to the Department of Transportation to try and figure out what can we do to try and mitigate some of this speeding. How do we reduce speeding? We can't eliminate speeding because then we would have to just eliminate stupidity, which we cannot do. But there are means in which we can reduce speeding. So this meeting is to discuss what those means could potentially look like and what they could potentially look like for the Castle Point neighborhood. I know everybody wants speed bumps, but speed bumps are not always the solution. There are other options that we may want to consider that are actually more feasible and probably more appropriate for your neighborhood. So I am now going to turn it over to Councilwoman Shalonda Webb. She'll just say a few words. She is your councilwoman. So for those of you who do not know her, she is amazing. So I encourage you to get to know her. Go to her page, go to, I think now you all have a newsletter or something, so you all can discuss that. But anyway, Councilwoman Webb, take it away.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. So as both Shantaes has shared, we're here to talk about the concerns of speeding in the Castle Point community. I have had my own experiences when I'm walking in the neighborhood, when I was canvassing, when I was working with Shantae Jamison in the police department, handing out Ring doorbells, or whether we were doing the community day with the vaccination program, all of these things, when I'm handing out flyers and putting things on the doors, I've almost been hit multiple times. And so I am just sharing that experience, but you live there every day. You're listening to the speeding, the concerns of the speeding, and also for the kids in the area, making sure that they're safe. And so I won't take time to just greet you all. I just want to take time to greet you all. I thank everyone from the community for joining us. Again, this will be recorded so others can see it. It's very important that we try to push information because I don't want anyone to be blindsided or have a thought that they didn't know what was going on in their own community. We want to do this in partnership. And so I am grateful for the Department of Transportation and the leadership and their members, their team members for joining us tonight. I'm thankful for you joining us and other communities that's on the call, because we're hoping that Castle Point will be a model for us, that we will be able to take these different calming measures, implement them in Castle Point, and then other communities can leverage off of what we've done in Castle Point and mimic it in their community. Again, there's lots of information, so let's let the informed people talk with you all, have a great conversation, engage with questions. No question is stupid. Believe me, I ask more questions than anybody. So please engage with questions when that opportunity arises. I will want to do this so you all will know when I go off screen, it's because I am traveling to my son's football banquet tonight. It fell on this same night. So my screen will go off and I will be on mute, but I'll still be attentive until the banquet starts at 6:30. Thank you, Shantae Jameson, for organizing and being a true champion for Castle Point and all that you've done. Thank you, Shantae, as well, for always make sure everything is facilitated and recorded. All right, everybody, back to Shantae Jameson.
Thank you, Councilwoman Webb. So let me see here. So I know we have Spanish Lake for sure, and we have Castle Point on here. So I just wanted to recognize specifically Ms. Julie Griffith with the Spanish Lake community. She has been really, really working hard, trying to get things implemented in the Spanish Lake community. So thank you, Ms. Julie, for doing that. And then I also see Mr. Will. You're welcome. Mr. Will Jordan, who is, you are the executive director of what, Mr. Jordan, again?
Equal Housing and Opportunity Council.
Equal Housing Opportunity Council, and he is also a resident of Castle Point. I wanted to point that out because these are people who are resources for us. So it's not just us who are resources, but there are people within your community who are also champions and pioneers and working on you all's behalf on a regular basis. So without further ado, I will hand it over to the Department of Transportation, and they will start their presentation about our traffic calming measures.
All right. Good evening. My name is Glenn Henninger. Sorry, I don't have my video on. I can't guarantee my connection. So rather than freeze up on you, I just decided not to turn the video on. I am joined by our director, Stephanie Leon Streeter, and your area engineer, Adam Spector. And so any of the other communities that see something of interest that they think they would like to know more about, they will be able to contact Adam. And I am going to share my screen, hopefully, and not freeze up. Okay. Does everybody see that? We see a nod, okay. And of course, my options are underneath the stop bar. Okay, so we're here talking about Castle Point. As you know, I don't need to get into too many details. You all know where you live. It's a North County subdivision bounded by Halls Ferry Chambers in 367. So built in the 1950s. Unfortunately, the county did not really get on board with requiring sidewalks of developers until the mid 70s. So any subdivision before then is pretty much in the same boat as you folks. There's just not sidewalks, and there's not a lot of money to build sidewalks within subdivisions.
He fell off. Oh, there he is.
Hey, Shantae Jameson or Shantae Young. Could someone else share their screen and he can just talk to it? Because that may be, his bandwidth may not be a lot.
Yeah, that's what I was
enough.
thinking. So Adam, if you can pull it up, I will
trying
call
to get there
him
now.
and let him know if he's not aware that he fell off.
He could be having a very nice conversation with himself, though.
That is true.
Everyone, just give us just a minute. Technology only.
I got
works
muted.
when it
I don't
wants.
think it was a bandwidth issue. I got muted. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Do you want?
Yeah. But you're not sharing anymore.
Yeah,
do you
your
want-
screen
I
left.
stopped sharing.
You
Oh, okay.
completely dropped off.
So Adam, if did you find the presentation?
I believe so. I'm
All
pulling
right,
it up now.
I'll let you drive and I'll talk. Either the PDF or the PowerPoint is fine. They're the same.
Okay. Oh, there we go.
All right.
Eh,
Gotta go
Seem to
back
have skipped to the end.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for joining us.
Okay. Are we back where we left off here now, I think?
Yeah, just go to the next. Yeah, that's just basic neighborhood information. We noticed you got the elementary school, nice county park, some pretty good amenities that would be good to be able to get to without having to use a car and worry about getting hit. Um, Basically grid patterned streets, which by our standards is just very straight. And you got a block, and then you got an intersection, you got another block, you got an intersection. There's straight, not a lot of curves, which does not bode well for your problem. People can see forever, and when their eyes start to wander in the distance, they start going faster. Then we noticed the problem. The north-south blocks seem to be fairly long compared to what most of the developers are building these days. They're 700 plus feet long. And the east-west blocks, they're pretty average. They're about 300 feet between intersections. So what we did after we were contacted is we went out to gather some data, pick 15 locations throughout the subdivision to try and get a good feel. We got traffic volumes, speeds, which you will see the results of those later. Basically, what we do is we measure what's called an 85th percentile, which that 85% of drivers are traveling at or below that speed. If we get 85% of drivers driving within 5 miles per hour, we consider that fairly normal and acceptable. When they start getting between 5 and 10 miles per hour over, that's starting to get to be a problem. And then 10 plus miles per hour over posted speed limit is definitely a problem. There is some existing traffic control, noted multi-way stop control intersections, and a few yield signs. While out there, the obedience to those was questionable. I'm sure living there, you've seen it more than we have in our brief time out there. And then we also looked at the crash history for every street in the neighborhood. And when we start getting into double-digit crash numbers, especially in a neighborhood that even over 6 years, that is concerning as well. So you can go on. That's just a brief map of where we collected that data. So you can see it's pretty much spread out throughout the subdivision. And I have to. All right. So this was the results of our data gathering. So the posted speed limit throughout the whole subdivision's 25. This first set of streets colored green under the speed, they were all within that 5 mile per hour of the posted speed limit category. Some of them were even below it. We also noted in the same table the direction, because that the street travels, that gets back into the 700 feet blocks and the 300 feet blocks east-west. So you'll see that in the next table or the next two tables. So you can go on. Look. So the second set of streets, you can see these speeds are turning yellow. The speeds are increasing, but what's interesting is that as you get into the worst streets, they're the north-south streets. So those 700-foot long blocks, north-south, that people can just see forever and not have to worry about an intersection. It's a visual cue that just naturally makes people unaware of where they're at and they just start drifting as far as their speed goes. And, there's going to be a few people that speed on purpose and just don't care, but it is concerning. What I failed to mention in the first table was we also have the crash history in the last column. Those are also color coded as far as where we're seeing the worst problems. And those are not correlated so much to the point that we gathered the speed information. That's the whole street. So on Monarch Drive, for instance, we had 2 places where we gathered speed, but that 47 accidents is throughout the whole corridor. So I'm guessing most of it was in the Monarch Drive that's on the last slide or the last table, which Adam, you can skip towards that. So these were the worst locations. Speeds approaching 40 miles per hour, and that's 85th percentile. So that means 15% of the people were going even faster than that. And they are all those north-south roads with the 700-foot long blocks. And they have the majority of the crash problems as well. So we have definitely been convinced that there is an issue that needs to be addressed with traffic calming in Castle Point, and it will be a very good pilot. We have set aside a pot of money to address this. What we want to do now is show you what we think is appropriate and get some feedback, make sure we have the locations right. If you see any place that you think is worse, or, we were just way off in our data gathering that one day and there's not really a problem in one location, that kind of thing. So we make sure we put these things where they're needed. So traffic calming is really broken up into 3 main categories. Horizontal deflection and horizontal narrowing are really just constricting the roadway, making it feel like you're supposed to drive slower. The streets are all the same width. If there's no cars parked, especially, and there's not a lot of traffic coming at you, it just feels like a runway. Then you get into vertical deflection, which somebody mentioned speed bumps, which are really not appropriate anywhere but parking lots. But even speed humps, which are kind of just longer speed bumps without quite as much of a jolt, they have their own issues, which I'll get into later. So mid block, so this is the horizontal type stuff where we just can move medians, we can place things in the middle of the road, just trying to make drivers go out of their straight path and make them be aware that they're in a neighborhood. So in mid block we can put, and we'll have a depiction of all of these later, but we can put what's called chicanes, chokers, or medians. At intersections we can put in traffic circles, which you drive like little roundabouts. If you've ever been up, several years ago, we built a roundabout at Old Halls Ferry in Vale, north of here. And it'd be like that, but a lot smaller version. And if we really want to get into forcing people out of their straight path, we can do what's called a diagonal diverter. There's also a couple of full block treatments. We can just designate part of the street as a pedestrian space, use some kind of physical or visual means to separate it from traffic and say, hey, this is for peds, don't drive here. That will require a lot of community support, and as one side of the entire block is going to be no parking, whereas for these mid-block treatments, the chicanes, chokers, and medians, there is going to be some parking restriction, but it's going to be localized to the area of that curb relocation. And then if we really want to get tricky and force people to make turns and not be able to go 2,100 feet with nothing in their way, we can institute some one-way street patterns, which they'll go 700 feet. They'll have to make a turn before they can keep going north or south, depending on the direction. So that one, you'll see a depiction of it later. It's an option and it's a cheap option, but it is going to require everybody to kind of go out of their way, not just the people speeding. So and these are all drawn on an aerial of one of your typical streets you'd find in your subdivision. But a chicane, what we do is we put a bulb out on both sides of the street, separated a certain distance. That distance can vary depending on if you want two cars to be able to go through it at the same time, if they're going in opposite directions, or if you just want one car to be able to go through it. And if somebody else is coming, they just have to wait. These and chokers are pretty much meant to mimic parked cars. So on our typical street, I mentioned that your street widths are pretty close to what we would build today. We build those streets so that there's room for parking on both sides and there's room for one car to go down the middle. So if there's a lot of cars parked on the street, that one car going down the middle is going to have to do something similar that they would have to do if we just built a bulb out to simulate that one car. Of course, we would take into account people's driveways. We wouldn't block driveways, but there would be a on-street parking restriction in the vicinity of the bulb out. Next. This is pretty much just a canned off, from online, what the advantages and disadvantages of chicanes are. They're very easy to build. And other than the restriction of on-street parking, they're probably one of the best choices for the subdivision. Yeah, you can go on. We don't want to get too far into this. If you put those bulb outs just directly opposite each other, then that's called a choker. It just chokes the street down from its typical width, which yours is about 25 feet. You can leave 10 feet in between for just one way to get through. If there's a car coming opposite, they just have to wait. It does take some courtesy, but in a subdivision that there's a lot of on-street parking, if you've ever been somewhere when somebody was having a Christmas party, and everybody's parked around their house, you might notice this same situation is it does slow people down. When the on-street parking isn't used is when you get your situation. And the advantages and disadvantages of chokers are about the same as chicanes. They're pretty much the same thing, just depends on the placement and the offset of the bulb out. Another thing we can do just to narrow the driver's way is put medians in the street. Every, couple hundred feet, just to narrow their field of vision. We put something in their path. If they're driving right down the middle of the street going fast, they're going to have to go around that. And even if they're staying to one side, just the restricted width will slow people down. It's not quite as disruptive as the chicanes and chokers, but they do work. And they have pretty much the same advantages and disadvantages. One advantage they have over the other two is you don't really have to worry about where the water's going as much, where the storm water, whereas on the other two, you kind of have to watch that. We don't want to start flooding, or not flooding, but having water pond in people's front yards and gathering mosquitoes and such. That would all be designed, but the median is easier to design than the two that go on the outside of the road. So next. Now, when we get to intersections, this is what I called the little miniature type roundabout. In a neighborhood, it's actually called a traffic circle. It's not near as big and cumbersome as a roundabout. What that does is it forces the person going straight to deviate from their straight path, which slows them down. And we're having a little problem finding a design that works well with the streets as they exist. So what I have shown in the corners could be an area we have to rebuild to actually install this kind of treatment within Castle Point. If that is the case, that could potentially double the cost of that treatment, in which case that just means that there's less locations that we can put them at. So it's going to be kind of a balancing act. Is if the subdivision is interested, we will definitely explore it more, and we'll come up with a cost difference and see, if we do one of these and it does force us to fix all four corners to make it navigable, then it could mean as many as 2 or 3 of those previous installations we won't be able to do. So next, they're good at moderating speeds. They would not be good for moderating speeds within that 700-foot long north-south block. So we would most likely still have to do something in between on those longer blocks. They are very good for reducing accidents at intersections. So, oh, and that entire surface of the circle would be hard. There wouldn't be any landscaping or anything in the middle of it. So larger vehicles that can't make it around that circle would be able to drive over it if they had to make their turns. Also at intersections, this is, I don't know if it be called a nuclear option, but it is very restrictive. It is called a diagonal diverter, to where we just force people to turn and go on to the next block in one direction or the other to continue if they're going north, south, multiple blocks. It is a good option if there's people running or just, not fully stopping at an existing stop sign, something of those, along those lines. Problem is, it also restricts the east-west traffic, forces them to turn as well. And that east-west traffic not only is not as much a speeding problem, that forces them to go 700 feet out of their way to get, if they're going to want to continue going east and west. It is an option, not one that I am suggesting, but if the subdivision is interested, just like the traffic circle, we'll keep exploring it. The costs are similar to the first 3 that we showed, because it can be built right at the intersection. Advantages and disadvantages are pretty much what I already talked about. They're very restrictive. They could be bad for emergency services, depending on how they're getting there and what particular house they have to go to. They can be made to be mountable by a fire truck if they have to be. So that might be an option if it's something you want us to keep looking at. All right. So as far as full block treatments, I mentioned that we could carve out 5 feet one side of the road or the other for pedestrians. That can be done visually with a stripe, which probably would not make people feel very comfortable. It can be done physically with different treatments like parking blocks, or we call them French fries. They're really more like the official term is delineators, but it's kind of a big plastic stick placed every, 5 to 7 feet that just tells cars you're not supposed to be driving here. That, we would leave openings for driveways, of course. And that treatment would get expensive depending on how many blocks you wanted to do and depending on what we wanted to use for that separation between the pedestrian and the car. So just like the traffic circles, any money we put into carving out a space for the pedestrian walking takes away from money we can put towards the speed reduction. Okay, next. And this is an example of what we would do at the one-way street grid if you were so inclined. Since there are so many entrances into the subdivision off the main drag chambers, every other one could be designated one-way street, where one goes in, the next one is the one-way out, and so on. And then the next block to the north, those get swapped to where a car is forced to turn at those intersections to continue to go north. And then they're forced again, if they're still going north, all the way to the upper end of the subdivision. That, like I said earlier, is it's a fairly cheap option. It's just done with signing. It's going to have its drawbacks as far as it's going to impact everybody, not just the speeders. But it is an option if it's something you want us to look at. Next. So this is a typical north-south street when you're coming up to that first intersection. And you can see forever. No idea what time of day Google Earth drove these streets, but you can see that there's very little on-street parking. This particular one is also going downhill, which does not help speeding problems either. But instead of seeing this, you can go to the next one. They would see either this and force a turn either right or left, or we would combine this sign with one of those bulb outs to narrow the entrance to the next street, just to reinforce that you are not supposed to go this way. You're in a neighborhood, slow down. And of course, if we start doing that gets expensive. Next, so most of these treatments can be combined. If we do carve out a walking path for the pedestrians, we can still do some bulb outs. This one's showing a choker that would pretty much just leave a cut through behind the bulb out and the existing curb for the pedestrian path. But it would still constrict the road for the driver to have to navigate and slow down. Oh, that one should have gotten fixed. That's just another combination. So if we combined a median with a choker, that would force a driver, if he's driving down the center of the road, to move over. And then rather than speed right back up again, he'd have to move back into the center to get around the choker. So that is a very restrictive set of traffic calming measures. It also, it gets expensive. So the more of those we do, the less we can do on other streets. But it's an option. So this page just shows what can be done for that carving out a space for the pedestrians. Take 5 feet of one side of the street or the other, restrict parking, and line it with either a parking block. The picture in the middle is something fairly new. it's called a zebra hump or something like that. They're only about a foot and a half long, but and that they have the white stripes to make them stand out against the black background. But those spaced every 5 to 7 feet would be very visible to cars, would be very difficult to drive over. They're, I want to say, 8 inches high, but would not be overly obtrusive to the subdivision itself and not be something really tall and just look out of place like the delineator stick, which would be the cheapest of the three physical options. And those are only three options. We can look at a lot more. So that was the horizontal and the full block type treatments. I do realize that everybody, when they think of traffic calming, they think of speed bumps, which the speed bumps have definitely gone away and are only appropriate in parking lots pretty much. But there are other vertical type things where you make a car actually go up and over a bump. They call them speed humps. They're a little bit longer than a speed bump. They're not quite as intrusive and don't cause as much of a jolt, but they are still a pretty good jolt. And the problem with that is that there's several bullets below here. They have been found to interfere with emergency response times, painful for people with back and neck issues. That there are studies that say they can reduce property values, and they definitely will increase noise levels. Car suspensions, when they hit those, you will hear springs and shock absorbers. They do increase wear and tear on everybody's cars, no matter how fast you hit them. I shouldn't say hit them, but go over them. They will increase air pollution just because you slow down and speed up after you go over it. They will reduce fuel efficiency and increase gas consumption. And if we were to go with something like this in this pilot project and everybody decided they didn't like them, then there's another expense to remove them. So it is something we will look at if you want to, but we are not recommending these vertical deflection measures. I did not draw them on your street as a typical, just because it's hard to really see something that is built up off the road on a plan view aerial. But this is just a typical surface of a speed table, to where there's a slight ramp up on one side, there's a flat surface, and then a slight ramp down on the other side. It does slow people down. It's just they're not as popular as they used to be for those reasons I already said. Next. So they are smoother on the fire trucks. They're definitely smoother than speed bumps and speed humps, but fire trucks will still have to slow down. And like I mentioned, they tend to reduce property values just because they're kind of big and not real pretty. And unless you spend the money to change the texture of the surface, like a stamped brick pattern or something along those lines. And those would, spending money on enhancing those would take money away from doing anything in other places. So it's another balancing act, just like everything else. If we want to spend more money on a certain feature, that's just going to reduce the number of features we can do. So next. So after looking at your neighborhood and all the possible tools we have come up with what we think is a good plan. Wanted to get your opinion on making sure we knew where the problems were. We're still leaning towards the horizontal deflection of building bulb outs for chicanes, chokers, or putting a median down the middle of the road. The north-south blocks are definitely the problem that we saw. Being 700 feet long, the spacing of these installations is also critical. They suggest in different traffic calming guides that they be spaced no more than 200 feet apart. In that case, if you have a 700-foot long block, you're going to need really 3 sets to get the most benefit. So we would suggest spending money on 3 sets of those type treatments on the most problematic. And I have no idea what that is opening. Oh, that's Adam.
Sorry, that's me.
Yeah. Okay. So 3 sets of those treatments on the most problematic roads. And then as money allows, put 2 sets on the parallel north-south blocks that are maybe not as much of a problem now, but there's always a concern that speeders will just shift one way or the other. You know, all those blocks pretty much go to the same place. So if they want to just avoid what we do on the problem streets, we don't want them to just go on the neighboring street and still drive with their same behavior. We're pretty sure we can put the pedestrian path back on Princess. And if the subdivision is interested in others, we would just have to balance that cost with the need for speeding control and see how much we can fit within the budget. Oh, I did not mention the budget. We have set aside, and we said this is a pilot, so we have set aside $1 million. Yeah, it does sound like a lot, but you do have a very large subdivision. So one set of these chicanes, chokers, and medians is going to be in the neighborhood of $15,000 to $20,000. So if you say you have 3 long north-south blocks on Monarch, that $15,000 to $20,000 times 3 is going to get you into the $60,000 range, and then times 3 again for the 3 blocks is going to be $150,000 to $180,000 for one street. So you can see that $1 million is going to start getting eaten up pretty quick. And the more pedestrian paths we do, the less actual traffic calming we can do. But we would be glad to go that way if that's what the subdivision desires. And like I said, if the subdivision would like to consider the one-way opposing grid on some or all of the long blocks, we can easily do that since it's a matter of signing and getting the ordinances in place. So next. So our next steps. So we are here having the virtual meeting, we're gonna open it up for questions and feedback, ask you if where we have determined the problems are really where they're at. If you know of any worse locations that we didn't study yet, then we are going to evaluate that feedback. We'll come up with a plan that for the entire subdivision, other than just picking out a street that I showed as an example, that fits within that budget and gets as many of those measures in as we can that you folks want. We gotta refine those planning level decisions and get a really good estimate. What up to that point, all we've really done is drawn lines on an aerial. And after we do that, we can actually get into detailed design and make sure that our new curbing isn't going to redirect water into people's front yards, that kind of thing. So that would be called detailed design. And we can either design this in-house, or we may have to go out and have a consultant design it, depending on how much our staff resources can take. And if we have to go out and get a consultant, I'm still guessing we might be able to be under construction yet this summer, or this coming summer, I should say. But it will be close. If we can fit it as an in-house design, and we can make some good decisions in the next couple months, we should definitely be able to be under construction this summer. And that's all I have.
Hi, that was really great. I'll start it off with a question. My name is Nancy Jordan. I'm Will's wife. I also sit on St. Louis County Housing Commission, or Affordable Housing Commission. But I do have a question. I am assuming that sidewalks really are not an option. Is that right?
Well, the $1 million pilot project is set aside for the subdivision for traffic calming. If we were to use it to build sidewalks, it will not build near as much as you would think. And I'm not really sure where it is in the budget approval process, but since it was approved as a traffic calming pilot, I don't know that it can be used for building sidewalks. We would be, I think, as far as the transportation department goes, if that's the council person's wishes and the subdivision's wishes, we could look at it, but it's not going to go very far as putting sidewalks in the whole subdivision. And it's
And one of
not
the
gonna do anything
reasons,
to slow people down.
let me jump in. One of the reasons is because, we'd have to determine along each street where the right of way line is. But if we're getting easements, if we're buying right of way in order to put the sidewalk in, obviously somewhere behind the curb, that's going to not only require funding to do it, and consume part of that $1 million, but it's going to require a detailed plan set that allows us to acquire that property, fairly with the resident. It's not something that we would take, and we certainly wouldn't want to. We would try to avoid condemnation. So that just is some of the restriction that we're under. And so whether or not in that case we could roll out a project next year in 2022 would be questionable, because that would obviously be that much more activity. Whereas the chicanes or medians are in right of way, they're in the street, they're in property that we own. It would be, a different conversation in that regard.
Sure, absolutely. I figured it was going to be more involvement, but I just wondered, kind of what exactly would be involved and if it had been considered. And so it was just a question. I figured this would be as good a place as any to ask. Thanks.
Oh, perfectly legitimate question.
And Mrs. Jordan, I also want, because, and you all can correct me if I'm wrong, Department of Transportation, but I was also told that in Castle Point, not everyone has driveways. So if you install sidewalks, that takes away from some of the street parking. So then you have the sidewalk, then you have people parking, which doesn't leave much room for people driving because the streets are very narrow. So I was told that previously by someone from who's no longer with us, but was in the Department of Transportation.
No, that is true. That is true. There's a lot of on-street parking, and there are a number of homes without driveways. You're absolutely right.
Well, I guess the question that begs is the location of the sidewalk. If the sidewalk was going to consume part of the street location, then yes, that would narrow the street and cause a parking issue. What I was talking about was typically you see sidewalk behind the curb. In other subdivisions, in and around your area, I'm sure you'll see the curb, you'll see maybe a green space, maybe it's 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot, whatever, and then you see sidewalk. Now, of course, that placement of sidewalk in that situation is limited by, we'd have to work with the Department of Planning and setback and things like that, I think. But just assuming that all was copacetic, you're talking about potentially putting sidewalk for all intents and purposes in someone's front yard. And obviously, if we wouldn't just dump it there, we would be acquiring the property to make it become right of way so we could do that. So I don't know in all cases that it does mean that parking is taken, but what it will require is residents to get on board with a sidewalk system that is now in what they perceive as their front yard.
And it would shorten the use of those driveways that do exist. So you're not supposed to park over a sidewalk. So if they can fit 2 cars in their driveway right now, the sidewalk might make it so they can only fit 1.
So I have a question. My name is Sharon Jackson. I am a director for our neighborhood organization here for homeowners. And is there a way to look at Baroness Drive? That traffic on that street is unbearable. It goes both ways. And so if you're walking, I'm a walker, or I was riding a bike, but it's just, there's no way to get across safely to the park. So I'm asking if you could look at Baroness Drive, just all of it really up and down. And that is East and West Street.
Okay. Adam will make note of that, and we'll take a look at what we've done so far and possibly get back out there and gather some new data. I don't remember those tables right off the top of my head, but not all of what was in the red was north-south, but it was majority was north-south. So, but yeah, we will definitely.
Well, if that's the case,
So,
then Royal Drive, did you have that on there as a north and south street? Because,
yes.
Okay, yeah, I see it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Oh, there.
So 35 miles per hour would have been the cutoff between it turning red from yellow. So Royal Drive and Baroness both were pretty far up there as far as what we considered a problem.
Okay, thank you.
If I can interject, I apologize. My name is Lucretia Wilkes, and I have a home license facility on Castle Drive. And we've been there for 5 years. We're licensed for 24-hour care. So we have kids coming and going all kinds of times of the day and night. We know we don't have sidewalks, and the speeding is atrocious. I talked to Councilwoman Rochelle Gray earlier in the year about it, after being concerned that one of our babies would be hit. And so she told me that the speeding bumps were not going to be feasible because the streets were too wide. So I'm really excited about this project, but I did want to know if there's any possible way we could have some type, whatever we decide to do, if that's special blocking or whatever we do, if we could concentrate on the daycare facility on that end of Castle. So that way we could probably slow down the speeding in front of the daycare in the area, if that's possible. My address is 10047 Castle Drive. Thank you.
Thank you.
So yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. What was your name again?
My name is Lucretia Wilkes.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. So as the current councilwoman of the district, I apologize if we've never made contact and had a conversation, but I am aware of your facility because the district assistant's grandson actually attended. And so we make sure that we take that into consideration.
Awesome.
Yes, ma'am. And so, but what we want to make sure too, that Shantae Jameson and Miss Stephanie Streeter, you all may know, but the way that we survey or get feedback from the community, if we can touch on that before we leave, and then that'll give Ms. Wilkinson an opportunity to put her comments directly to us as well. I don't know if either of you can address how do we get that survey of feedback, or Mr. Glenn, if we know how those steps are going to be handled.
So what we can do, most of the people on, since they're on this call, I guess, they are fairly computer savvy and on the internet. We have a website on the county website where we have all of the currently funded projects. Most of them are the federally funded, the bigger projects, but they all have a comment section, and those comments will get funneled directly to the person. In this case, it would be Adam that needs them, and then he can put them
Well,
all
Glenn,
together.
Glenn, I think easier
Glenn?
still if Adam at the end of the presentation can provide, and I think he's typing it right now, if he provides his contact information and email, any of you at any time can do, after this presentation, tomorrow, next week. State your concerns. We have them in the presentation. We're hearing you. But if you at any time think that you didn't hear us, and you want to say it more emphatically or whatever the situation is, contact Adam. He's your area engineer and he works within Glenn's group, and we will make sure that we are incorporating your concerns into our plans and ultimately design and project.
Hi, Stephanie. And so I am going to actually stretch you all a little bit more than just the online interaction or websites or emails. So we have to be sensitive to those who don't have those opportunities. And so even putting the information in the chat today, I think we're going to have to do some other type of outreach in that community, whether we do door hangers and the team gets out there. I'm not asking you, Shantae, because I know you walk a lot, Ms. Jameson, but I'm willing to, and I know you moved on, but we got to go beyond just the email and so internet opportunities. We have to find a way to connect with those community members that don't have that access. And so I don't want anybody to feel like they were slighted or left behind just because they wasn't able to use those tools or have access to those tools. So maybe the team, Streeter, Ms. Stephanie, you all can come up with something, Glenn and Adam, whether it's a flyer you all want to put together and we can help. I have no problems knocking on doors, as they may know already, but we just want to make sure we go that extra mile this time. I really want us to make sure everybody's included. And once we put it before them and say, hey, this is the information, now the ball is in your court, I believe we've done our due diligence in our part, but we've got to at least do that.
Right, we can absolutely do that. And then they can, if they want to meet with us or if they just want to call us, if that's access that they have, then we can hook up and listen to what they have to say. We can start at least by, maybe even printing the presentation, but offering some additional conversation with that presentation so they understand what they're reading.
So that is actually a good segue into what I was going to close with. When the weather does get nicer, we'll still be working throughout the whole next steps process that I went through. But when the weather does get nicer, there is also still a little bit of money left of that original grant. Our plans for that are to come out and actually build a couple of these as a demo project. We leave them in place for a week or two, let people drive through them, see how they would impact their lives. And what we usually do with those is we'll come out and stay there for a while and talk to people and just get some, real-time feedback. We did that on West Florissant with a crosswalk before the whole Great Streets project got going, and that project has got a good head of steam going now. but it worked out very well. We got some very good feedback. So those demonstration type projects, we will be out in the subdivision with one of those when the weather gets nicer.
And I believe we did a demonstration project on Midland, if I'm not mistaken, and I think it offered people the opportunity there as well to
Yes.
come up and talk with us.
Yep, that was part of the action plan for walking and biking.
So that communication plan and next steps, if we can document that as well, as Shantae Young, the district assistant, keeps reminding me, we will be sharing this information in our newsletter. If you're not a part of the district newsletter, you can go to the council website, look for me, and then register to be on the news site, then register to receive the newsletter, and we will have this information there. With action or partnership with our community members that's on the phone, then I need your help too, disseminating information. So if you know of a neighbor that's not here, or wasn't able to engage with us tonight, just give them a heads up. You know, we share the bad things, let's share the great things. There's change coming, and we're invested in Castle Point. So I really would appreciate you sharing with the neighbor. If you catch them coming out the driveway or going in the door or sitting on the porch, if it's not too cool, drinking a cup of coffee, just kind of let them know we're doing this, and then tell them where they can get more information. Streeter and your team, if y'all could put that communication plan together and share with us, we'll put that on the website and in the newsletter as well. And if that communication plan, Mr. Glenn, will include when we're going to come together again, when would they have an opportunity to take some action and say, these are the things they like or dislike, as that time frame when you're going to be collecting that information? I think that would be much appreciated and value added.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I've given more work to Glenn and Adam. I'm sorry, but you know, y'all know me.
I think an in-person meeting sometime during the time that the demonstration project is actually up would be very feasible, and it would help us refine the plan before it got to final design.
I'm talking on mute. I totally agree.
Okay.
One other thing, Councilwoman, I wanted to recognize Mel Wilson from planning, who is here to help us through this entire process, because at some point we'll need to come to her for some level of assistance when it comes to creating this particular situation.
Yes, and
Yes,
me
ma'am,
and the
Frank.
Department of
Wonderful
Planning
to
look
have you,
forward
Mel.
to spreading the word too. Sorry, I spoke over you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
that's okay. I was just saying it's wonderful to have Mel. I sent her a direct text chat message when I first saw her face. So good to have you, Mel. And thank you for joining in another North County project. We so value your commitment to us and your engagement.
Of course, happy to be here.
Are there any other questions? I'm gonna, Shantae Jameson, want to take us from this point on?
Sure. Yeah, if we don't have any other questions, this meeting was recorded. So as we stated at the beginning of the meeting, this will be shared. So if you know of any residents who were not able to attend, please feel free to send them the link when you receive it. I will also add in the email addresses for Mr. Spector and anyone else that you all can reach out to. I, as Councilwoman Webb kind of briefly said, I am transitioning out. I will be transitioning to the prosecutor's office. So this will be my last official meeting and engagement with you all in this capacity. So moving forward, any additional questions that you have regarding your neighborhood, any concerns that you have, you all have advocates. Your councilwoman is an advocate. Her legislative assistant, Shantae Harmon Young, is a true advocate. And just
second favorite, Shantae.
Second favorite, Shantae. And just leaning on one another to really move things forward. So I'm really excited that we've gotten to this point with this project. As many of you know who've attended my community meetings a couple years ago, we've been having this conversation now for 3 years. And so it's really good now to see things come to fruition. If there are no other questions, does
Madam
anyone
Chair.
else have anything?
I think Sharon had a question. Sharon had a question about tree cutting.
With CDBG
Yeah.
fund.
Oh, Miss Sharon, just reach out to me personally about that. If you have a tree that needs to be cut, shoot me an email about it. I'll take care of that.
Okay.
Shantae, I accidentally said Madam Chair, excuse me. I was saying, I have to just, they do this to me all the time, so I have to do this for Miss Shantae. So she just so graciously said, I'm going to be transitioning to the prosecutor attorney's office. But Shantae has done some phenomenal things, Jameson, and she has earned her law degree. And so she's just not transitioning. She is going to be a full-time attorney in the prosecutor's office.
Oh, yeah.
Acknowledge fully and not try to just squeak that in as, yeah, I'm going to the prosecutor attorney's office.
Congratulations.
She is going to be an attorney.
That's how it's done.
Yes.
Mr. Will, I knew you would like that.
We mad at her a little bit, but we love her. We so excited for her.
Exactly. We have to celebrate and uplift everybody in our community as they thrive and strive and thrive to do greater and better things to help us. She's still going to be in that position, and I'm grateful for that. I have nothing else, so I'll turn it back over to you for final words. Oh, I should say thank you to everybody. So thank you, Department of Transportation, Ms. Streeter, Mr. Glenn, Mr. Adams. I'm sorry for calling names because I always end up skipping over somebody. So I do appreciate those from the Department of Transportation. I know I bug you all a lot, but I appreciate you responding to us. Not responding to me, responding to us as a community and putting our best foot forward and giving us a level of service of excellence. So thank you all. I want to thank all other community members from Castle Point. There are families that have been there 30, 40 years. There are people that's committed that aren't on this call, but I'm appreciative of you. I thank you all for continuing to reach out to our office and to work with us and to help us move forward together. So I'll start calling names again and get in trouble, but I heard Ms. Sharon out there. I don't know if Mr. Smith is out there, but I thank everybody who took the time out to call. I thank other communities that reached out from Spanish Lake and others for joining and listening in, because these are some of the common measures that we want to bring to other communities. And as I said before, this would be a great pilot, a demo for us to model and repeat the successes in other communities to make them greater as well. I want to thank Shantae Jameson again. I want to thank Shantae Harmon Young again. And I'm trying to scroll through pictures. I want to thank Mel for planning and all the residents. I do appreciate you all. And I appreciate you allowing me to serve you all and to do what's best for our community. Thank you for your trust and keep me accountable, everybody. Now, back to you, Ms. Shantae Jameson.
Hold on, go to your baby banquet and mute yourself. So if you are not receiving our newsletter, shoot me an email. The way that works is that I'll have to send you a link, or you can go onto the county website and click newsletter. And if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get the update every month. It just launched this month, so it'll come out every time I update. You will get a reminder email or an email stating something new is on the newsletter. And we are really trying to just keep everybody informed all the time. So please, please, please make sure that you are on our list. And if you want to shoot me your email, that'd be great. And I can send you a link to the live recording. So, okay, Shantae Jameson, get us out of here.
All right. I almost need to pray us out after all of that, but
we love you. It's my favorite, Shantae.
I love you too. But I just truly appreciate the Castle Point residents who showed up today, because it shows that you really do care. And not that people who didn't show up don't care, because I know people have lives, but I truly appreciate you all taking the time to attend this meeting. I know it has been a long time coming, you all. I know we know there is a lot that your neighborhood needs. We know that. But as Mr. Glenn stated in one of his slides, which I love, is that we need community buy-in. We can only do so much in our capacities, but you all live there. And we need you all to be strong advocates for yourself and for your neighbors and for your neighborhood and for your community. So as much as you all can show up to these meetings, as much as you all can get engaged and get involved as time will allow, we encourage you to do that as much as possible. Reach out to us, get on our nerves. There are some people who they will reach out to us every single day. I get phone calls from some people every single day, and that's okay, because it shows that you care. So if you have to get on our nerves to get stuff done, do that. Okay, so that's my final words. I don't have anything else. I love each and every one of you, and I will continue to work to the best of my ability to help make life better for the residents of North County and for the residents of St. Louis County.
Thank you
I just
so
want to
much.
say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you.
Phil,
Thank you all, and everyone have a good night.
have a good night. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.